To build a better future for everyone, I've decided to raise your taxes.
Let's explain the relationship between central government and local government. Local authorities act independently. Central government and ministers have no remit to intervene, except where provision has been made in an Act of Parliament. Local councils are accountable to their electorate and must act within their statutory powers.
The white paper that was published in December included two things, devolution and local government reorganisation, so they are linked. They're really looking for reshaping how local government works for reasons of efficiency and effectiveness, as well as being a complementary change to the introduction of strategic authorities.
One hopes that the final submission, when we put it in, kind of nudges ministers to remember that, so we're not just reorganising for the sake of reorganising. There is a bill somewhere between 45 and 55 million pounds for doing this. That's an estimate without the promise of additional powers coming down to Kent and money coming down to Kent in the form of that devolution. So I think we kind of need to keep reminding ministers that we're doing this for that devolution goal.
I know that there are available options, one of them being that it comes back to NBC members. I know that's not the preferred option, but there isn't an awful lot of democracy that's going on with this. But did Labour get a mandate in Kent? No. So my concern is if this all happens sort of behind closed doors, there's not an awful lot of input from local people.
It won't necessarily, like most consultations, I doubt it will be able to take the plans off the table, but it might be able to shape them in a better way, and getting as many voices in there as possible is going to be key.
Sadly, Jim did not fix it for Vince and Roger in February, and we did not get the devolution priority programme or the predecessors.
And in light of the wider local government reorganisation, LGR, process currently being explored across Kent, it's apparent that the assumed model of local democratic representation is being fundamentally altered. Question: under what statutory basis may the Executive or Cabinet initiate or progress a strategic reorganisation process, including engagement with central government on unitary transition without a resolution, recorded approval of full council, or a vote of the wider elected membership?
Maidstone Borough Council did not initiate this review process. It was initiated by Her Majesty's Government, and we are responding, along with other local authorities, to that initiative from Her Majesty's Government. The Executive, as to say the Cabinet, has the authority to carry out and to respond to government consultations. However, when we get to the point, both on the community governance review, and which will probably come first, and on the local government reorganisation, where specific proposals have to be put forward, then a full council resolution will indeed be required.
Us as their elected representatives, at least it gives some input from the ground.
We've talked about devolution and local government reorganisation. The topic here isn't devolution. We've been invited to put forward a proposal for local government reorganisation. We can't change that, but what we can do is listen to how people want to resolve the issues that get thrown up.
I wanted to ask about the local government review. We know that the government is pressuring all local governments to actually create unitary authority, but I'm sorry, but it doesn't sit well in my heart that we haven't had a democratic process on actually agreeing to be part of a unitary authority, and it does feel weird to me that Kent would be split. It's a historical boundary, Kent, and it feels weird for us to be split it apart. So, are we going to ever vote on this, please? Firstly,
Any decision from Maidstone Borough Council on this topic is to be made by the executive. Arrangements have already been put in place for there to be a full council meeting on the 17th of November for the purposes of seeking the views of council, not to put a motion and not for full council to make the decision. It's for the executive to make the decision. That is what is set out in the legislation. I'm afraid that is the case.
But the members of this council will, in accordance with our governance arrangements and the law, have a very full discussion on this, and any proposal put forward will be put forward with the democratic support of the majority of the members of this council.
Has this council, in accordance with statutory obligations, the Constitution and the Nolan Principles, allocated any budget, expended officer time, or formally engaged with the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities, Kent County Council, or external consultants regarding reorganisation proposals or options for unitary status prior to any full council ratification?
As I wasn't informed that you were going to be asking for financial details in advance, I will have to say that you will receive a written answer, because I do not wish to mislead you in any way by giving you an answer off the top of my head.
And finally, the request to postpone the May County elections was at the request of Kent County Council, not Maidstone Borough Council.
Councillor Jeffrey.
It sounds like the same as the first question. Those allegations are untrue and unfounded, so I won't be answering that question in detail. You're wrong.
We've all got our story to tell. I think we need to remember we're here also to do the work for the people who elected us. And I did take umbrage from the gentleman from the Heritage Party who was here earlier. Actually, we were elected by the people. If only so many % bothered to vote, that really isn't our problem. That's down to them. But we were elected, all of us, from all parties, by local people to deliver a local service. Thank you.
The press release reads, a move that will spark fears about the government's commitment to the devolution agenda. It's in fact the councils that have always been committed to quietly implement centralisation, and the formal invitation RSVP deadline is November 28th. What are we going to do about it?
Government reorganisation. Submission of business case to government. I call upon Mr. Sean Turner, a local resident who wishes to speak on this item.
I must put one matter clearly on record. Any proposal sent to ministers becomes a collective decision of every council and every tier. Each of us carries responsibility for the legality of what we authorise. I cannot allow my name to be attached to a proposal that is defective in law. I'm setting out 6 legal grounds that make it unlawful for this council to proceed with Kent's reorganisation. These are not opinions, these are statutory breaches that council is duty-bound to confront. 1. The invitation carries no mandate whatsoever. Section 2 of the 2007 Act is voluntary. It creates no duty and no obligation on any council. No councillor here is required by law to participate, and no officer can claim compulsion. If you proceed, you do so by choice, not by statute, and therefore you also carry the liability for the consequences. 2. Kent has already acted outside its powers. Significant proprietary spending and work took place before any valid proposal, before consultation, before the lawful council decision. The High Court in Gordley v Kent, CC 2017, was explicit. Preemptive spending on reorganisation is ultra vires. 3. The consultation requirement has been bypassed. Section 6 of the 2007 Act requires a full public consultation before proposals are formed. Moseley versus Haringey makes it clear it must include alternatives and be generally open. Kent's Let's Talk Kent exercise is not a lawful consultation. Models were chosen first, the public were told afterwards. A reorganisation built on unlawful consultation is void. 4. Predetermination is also proven. Kent's own documents refer to preferred models, shadow councils and implemented timelines. That is predetermination, which destroys the legality of any subsequent consultation and opens the door to judicial review for procedural unfairness. 5. Statutory transparency duties have been breached. Under the Openness Regulations 2014, every background document must be available. Legal advice, financial risk assessments, KPMG outputs, structural diagrams and governance modelling have not been published. A council that proceeds without publishing its evidence is acting unlawfully. Number 6. The refused postponement makes any reorganisation unlawful. The Local Government Act 1972 fixes election cycles. There is no power in the 2007 Act to postpone elections to facilitate reorganisation. Kent still attempted to do so and only withdrew after residents legally challenged it. On the 5th of February 25, the Minister confirmed there is no statutory mandate for postponement. Kent's own papers called postponement a necessary step for reorganisation. If the necessary step is unlawfully and rejected, then the entire reorganisation cannot lawfully continue. The House of Lords confirmed the same on March 24th, 25. Peers tabled fatal motions stated on record that there is no democratic mandate, no legal authority and no constitutional basis for linking reorganisation with interference in elections. They relied on FOI evidence supplied by residents, evidence this council has chosen to ignore. If Parliament itself says the government lacks mandate, this council certainly cannot claim one. Other councils, including Portsmouth, have already refused reorganisation because there's no legal duty to participate. The correct and lawful course is decline the invitation until full legal authority...
I'm afraid we'll have to stop you there. I'm afraid that is your time, even though we've given you some extra time to do the speaking.
I had one line left. Full public...
I have asked you to stop.
Okay. Thank you.
Contrary to the assertions made by the representative of the Heritage Party, we're not doing this because we think it's something we'd like to do. We are doing this because the government has set out a very clear process and has made it quite clear. If we don't engage with the process, that won't mean local government reorganisation doesn't happen. It just means we won't have any input into it. Some assertions have been made this evening on imaginative interpretations of the law, and I do say they are very imaginative interpretations of the law. We are where we are.
In March, I joined David for discussion on his Right Think TV show. We discuss the wokery, immigration links to housing, climate indoctrination in schools.
The behavioural change officer. I mean,
that doesn't sound very good.
They're not hiding anything, are they?
No.
A behavioural change officer did a talk there and explained to people what the initiative is here. And it's about behavioural change within schools. So they're trying to influence schools, but they're doing it with activists. Let's Go Zero is an activist group. And they say they're a free group and they offer a free service, but we know they're getting grants from central government. Nothing's free.
To kickstart the May 25 Kent County Council election campaign, we had 5 candidates in Kent. So I thank all members, Kent members, that stood for their communities.
20-mile-an-hour zone didn't quite get that level of unanimity, but they both threw out various other ideas which we need to take forward. And to be honest, I haven't pushed them forward because I'd spoken with Stuart Jeffries, the leader, I don't know, before the elections last year, and he said, look, there may be a borough-wide suggestion coming up on 20 miles an hour. So I put that one, I've got all the figures we've got. I can see Clive not nodding. But the tree...
safe walking routes, that's an issue of social justice. That's about the right to leave your house and be safe in your community and be able to walk freely and go where you please. You've got, Muppets like the guy in the White House that Adam has referred to that, claim to be on the side of the people, but, who then gets into Road Force One or whatever. But, these are people who are so, the sort of car culture is so ingrained, and this is not about being anti-car, but it's about being responsible in all our transport decisions.
That our fleet of vehicles is Euro 6. So you will see there are some authorities that are updating their fleet at the moment and are making quite a drama out of moving to Euro 6. We started the Euro 6 journey back in 2014. So whereas we're looking to update our vehicles, we're going to be using the same technology, and that basically burns off emissions as well. I mean, I think there's a saying that actually the tailpipe emissions from a Euro 6 vehicle in London are cleaner than what goes in at the front end.
Why in the middle of a cost of living crisis would you burn fuel for a journey that could be made just as quickly on foot, leave you with all the health benefits, particularly if it's a journey with your children, you know, those treasured moments with young people walking to and from school? Why would you not do that? It would be illogical not to, and yet all the stats that we've brought out in this report show that for far too many people, those really short journeys are being made in motorised transport. It's balmy.
I'm not sure if I heard correctly yesterday, but at the PAC, I believe, when they were discussing the budget, there was a mention of increasing our car park charges by 15%. I find that's an astonishing amount, and I just wonder if you could explain why you're looking at doing this, if I did hear it correctly, at a time when we know our residents are suffering from financial hardship and that our businesses in Maidstone need every bit of support that they can get. And will we not be chasing people to other areas where they can park for free or cheaper? Thank you.
Immigration and its links to housing crisis agenda. I quote Trevor Phillips from Sky News. Are you content that more than 5 out of 7 homes will go to immigrants? A national pattern, birth rates in decline, large numbers of houses sitting empty for councils to buy up cheaply, 700,000 plus nationwide. No data held to justify a local for affordable housing need.
Turner, firstly, the allocations of a lack of lawful basis for the council's housing and net zero actions are completely unfounded. Planning legislation, including the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act 2004, sets out a series of requirements for local planning authorities across England. Our local plan was agreed with the Planning Inspectorate and voted through by the council last year. Our housing targets are lawful, even if you don't agree with them.
You know, I come on 2 years ago and started to talk to you about this before, and at the time it was still erupting, and now it's got to the point where, I don't know if we've got the other slide there, but £8 million has been spent already on planning this. You know, that's the BBC there. And
so this is without anything actually being built?
Exactly.
Wow, what a waste of money. I mean, when I was on the London Assembly, we were, for the whole time, we were inquiring into this thing called the Garden Bridge that Boris Johnson wanted to build across the Thames. And they spent £40 million and not a brick was laid. It sounds like another, scam that somebody is making a load of money from management consultancy fees or whatever. And they haven't even built, the foundations of one house, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, originally it was voted through by the previous administration, the Conservative administration. It's been part of the local plan. This is a supplementary planning document that's part of the local plan, and I suppose it's a way of them hitting their national housing targets by doing a big settlement in one hit. But we obviously know through our knowledge that behind the scenes of this, they're also trying to create new communities that are free from transport.
In the Lennon by-election to campaign against Maidstone Council and Home England's controversial plan to create a 5,000 home sustainable and affordable garden settlement, or in real terms, a 15-minute city.
Hi there, it's Sylvia from the Heritage Party, agricultural spokesman. We have the Kent Agricultural Show on this weekend in the Kent Garden of England, which is unfortunately rapidly becoming the concrete building yard of England, with all the house building that's going on, which that they don't want farming on this land. I mean, some actually believe that. Tony Blair actually said that at one point when he was Prime Minister. And everything seems to be going that way now. They say it's for nature, but then Look around you. Look how many fields and hedges and trees and ancient woodlands and landscapes are being threatened daily.
Back to the keyboard. We saw a wave of alarming new bills put forward to challenge MPs and lords and related councillors, directly including those on climate and nature, planning and infrastructure.
This statement concerns both the substance of the Hart Farm proposal and the lawfulness of the wider planning framework that supports it. Through Freedom of Information and Environmental Information Regulation requests, we now hold official admissions from Maidstone Borough Council, reference EIR 0347, 16th of September 25, confirming that the Council holds no local CO2 data underpinning its climate emergency declaration and has no statutory authority or legal mandate for that declaration. In addition, formal correspondence from the Ministry of Housing, Kent County Council and Kent District Councils confirm no data exists on 5-year residency, employment or verified local housing need. The evidence required under MPPF paragraph 60 to justify local housing targets. This means that both the climate and housing foundations of the Council's planning policy are unsupported by evidence. Any claim that the proposed solar scheme or the wider housing allocations deliver a public benefit has no lawful evidential foundation in planning or environmental law. The National Policy Framework, Section 190, requires decisions to rest on objective evidence, and Environmental Act 2021, Section 19, obliges all public authorities, including planning authorities, to have due regard to the government's environmental principle policy statement. If there is no baseline data, then there can be no lawful test of environmental improvement, housing need or public benefit. At the same time, Maidstone is progressing major developments, Heathlands, Lidsing and others, without completing the Regulation 18 consultation required under 2012 local planning regulations. Documented evidence from Maidstone and Kent developments has been submitted to the House of Lords to assist the scrutiny stage of the Planning and Infrastructure Bill. This material is already informing parliamentary review of how local authorities justify so-called climate-led or housing need development in the absence of lawful data. In summary, the Council's climate rationale lacks verified evidence. Can you stop clicking your pen, please? The Council housing targets lack lawful baseline data. The local plan processes remains procedurally incomplete, and the cumulative environmental harm from solar and housing projects has not been lawfully assessed under the Habitats Regulation or the Environment Act 2021.
The Climate Change Act of 2008 sets out the country's requirements to reach net zero. Plus, of course, so does the science. I have no intention of spelling out the science to you, as you're quite capable of looking for the evidence yourself, even if you disagree with it.
From one of our listeners. This is Sean in Maidstone, who writes, "Dear Dom, let's be clear and offer some balance to our listeners," he says. KCC never declared a climate emergency in 2019. They recognised one, which opened up funding streams for central government. He goes on to say local emissions data was never justified, and the UK contribution is 1% to global emissions. Kent's contribution is statistically insignificant. As seen in other reform-led councils, climate recognitions abolished by, but green grants left open tight to net zero. Can you pick through any of that from Sean Turner? He's saying, I'm assuming he's saying we're not being clear. The KCC never declared a climate emergency in 2019, he says.
They recognise, the terminology recognise rather than declare is certainly the distinction. However, by recognising, Dom, that climate emergency, what KCC was saying was they recognised the need to go net zero by 2030.
It's never been about the environment. It's always been about finance. So
what is this? The banks are no longer able to make money out of it, so they're pulling out. Is that what's going on?
Well, I mean, you probably put the words in my mouth there, but I don't really know what's going on. But all we can feel is what comes down through the council. I don't know what you've got there from KCC. Maybe
This is something interesting. This is from KCC where someone mentions they're going to reframe the whole ideology of climate alarmism. I'll just play this. Yeah.
If you're in Hersham and you see a wind farm, you look inland and you see solar farms, but you look in the high street and you see businesses closing. Right? This is the reality. We were promised prosperity and sustainability, and instead what we're seeing is hardship. That is the reality of what we're dealing with. So I say this not to abandon our environmental responsibilities, but to reframe them, to ground them in economic reality.
I am actually concerned about this. It's an awful lot of money. £7.7 million of taxpayers' money to be spent essentially on our own office block.
They say that there has been some suggestion that we are being distracted by media events or high profiles, but I would say that many of the things that we are being criticised for in terms of nature recovery are quite significant. It is not a distraction, it is a fundamental threat to the survival of the human race if the ecosystem collapses underneath us and we don't have, for example, pollinators to pollinate crops. This is not a distraction, it is fundamental to the maintenance of the future.
I'm answering this with reference to my portfolio, and I'm wondering why embodying the rights of nature into a workable model which truly keeps nature at the heart of all our decision-making processes is deemed as merely symbolic, despite being within our corporate strategy. Now, in 2019, under the Conservative administration, we unanimously declared a climate and biodiversity emergency, and we committed to tackle climate change through local sustainability and decarbonisation, as well as addressing biodiversity loss through nature recovery and creating ecological networks. We cannot keep kicking this can down the road to the detriment of the generations to come.
Schools and well-being.
Promote excellence in schools rather than political propaganda.
Manage emergency measures is that the UK contributes less than 1% of global CO2 emissions. Being a voice for children. After a recent circular economy webinar, Sustainably in Education, I observed that these non-governmental organisations, with their ideological agendas cloaked in educational funding, claim to promote critical thinking and empowering students. Question: before allocating public funds, have Maidstone Borough councillors and officers considered the psychological risks to children being told that the world is ending if they don't take action?
I will have to check the psychological question with officers, but I do not believe so, and as I mentioned, we are not allocating any public funds on this.
Flood resilience, accessibility to nature and threat to food security. The delivery of truly affordable, energy-efficient homes and much-needed social housing to get our families out of temporary accommodation. The upgrading and future-proofing of Maidstone's assets to ensure that they meet tough new legislation and become more viable and sustainable for the future, regardless of what local government looks like. Of practical and resident-focused leadership, I am grateful for our leaders' commitment to place the practical and welfare needs of our residents, especially our most vulnerable, at the very heart of our decision-making processes, tackling inequality.
I'm quite conscious that the cabinet is largely male, and I want to say that it is men that are the problem, and as men we absolutely need to do everything in our power to up our game and to take responsibility, as was pointed out by I think all of you this evening. So thank you.
I won't be withdrawing that at all, I'm afraid. Thank you. Yeah. So, the seconder to that was Mr. Paul Chamberlain.
So, Mr. Chairman, can I just say something quickly? Look, my wife is a daughter of Windrush immigrants.
I think what we do now...
You're calling basically I hate immigrants. I married the daughter of Windrush.
Order.
Okay, thank you. Don't call me racist.
Wait one moment. We are getting very close to running out of time. Points have been made. Points of order might be made, but I'm going to move on. I'm going to ask the seconder.
I'm a bit unclear, though, on... I mean,
root causes was mentioned. What do you think some of those root causes are? Do you think it's perhaps cultural? And then what are potential ways in which that can be addressed?
It's women and girls. Oh, how long have we got?
About the root cause, about violence against women and girls, there are so many root causes, but the main thing that we are thinking about really is that the social norms and the narrative that forms part of that first layer of the violence against women and girls. So when we think about it from a social construct point of view, we want to think about the way in which men and boys are talking about women in the community. They're talking about it with their friends. If that's not challenged on that lower level, and we're thinking about violence against women and girls as a pyramid, that foundation is created and it leads to further violence, to further aggression, to further, and then obviously, you know, we've got our domestic abuse related death reviews, we've got our homicides. So really what we want to be thinking about the root cause of it is that social construct and actually how we challenge the narrative around it, lifting the focus really from being that victim blaming, even if it's subconscious, to the conversation of, you know, what are men and boys doing? How are they part of this conversation? How they're forming part of that conversation? And if we can dismantle those social constructs that form part of that misogyny, we're also going to tackle that toxic masculinity as well.
Coming on to some of the other things, the leader referred to Kimmy and my motion on community cohesion. Not such a necessarily completely dissimilar thing, is it? You know, there's a lot of anger in our society now. We need to see how, as a society, people can come together. So I for one, are looking forward to the Cabinet's proposals coming back through the committee system on how we actually can take that forward.
Thank you, Paul. I mean, I just think the suggestion or the implication that flying this flag is racist and intimidatory is completely wrong. I mean, it's the most tolerant country in the world. The reason people are waving, it is. And, you know, the flag's no more intimidating than a Palestine flag. Is it? It's not. Well, it's not. So I don't understand why this is coming, because people flying the Union Jack. The reason people flying the Union Jack is because hundreds of thousands of people are coming here, undocumented, young men, dangerous, from a completely different culture.
In the Chair, I believe this motion is to do about working with community cohesion. It's asking this council to do all it can to prevent the facts around current and recent. It's about addressing the concerns of minority cultures in a hostile environment and promote cultural awareness and diversity. That's it. Heard presentations at full council and other meetings from Mr Turner, who is disrespectful to the Chair, who is disrespectful to officers, and actually is borderline threatening elected members. This is not who we are. This is not what we do. And we need to challenge every step of the way. All it takes for evil to succeed is good men and women to do nothing. Yes, I've included women in that quote, by the way, because we have to stand up. We're not, fly what flag you like. It means you're not welcome here if you're a certain religion or a certain ethnicity.
So to that, what facts will we be presenting, and how are you going to promote cultural awareness?
Be clear that if you are a female, they will go on your looks, the clothes you're wearing, your weight, whether you're married, whether you're not married. But here, Angela Rayner got the same abuse. Are they capable of doing the job? That's the question you should ask. That's the only question. Doesn't matter what you look like. Doesn't matter whether your hair's long, short, spiky, different colour. Are you capable of doing the job?
So a ministerial reshuffle, hey? I guess it must be a further coincidence that Mrs Rayner and Mr McMahon have just been ejected from the Ministry of Housing, Communities, Local Government and English Devolution Departments. I congratulate Madeline for her efforts. It's because of you.
Then reality here.
Whilst residents begged for improved community safety, bins to be collected, we debated writing a letter to the government about reducing the voting age to 16, frustrations with foreign conflicts, Maidstone Witches Memorial, which did put us on the map because it made us an embarrassment, and rights for rivers. I'm sorry, that one still confuses me.
It's been mentioned about the 7 million. You are just fast and loose with money that is not yours, and it is just not acceptable. You need to be more resident focused. You back Palestine Action, a terrorist group on social media, world leader, and and that is very significant because this week a police officer had their back broken by one of those terrorist people.
Knowledge is what we have done over the past 18 months, but you have focused time on pursuing this untimely motion because if passed it will cause chaos and distract from these principles issues you are accusing us of neglecting. This motion is little more than a witch hunt and I'm totally against this nonsense.
So I'm Councillor Stuart Jeffrey, leader of Maidstone Borough Council, loyal servant of the goddess Gaia, and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next. I'm pleased to welcome you to this meeting.
Council elections must go ahead in 2026. Let's stop reorganisation before elected officials and public representation is replaced by assemblies and executive-led trust panels.
We're getting some subject experts in to help us, various different areas that will look at examining trust. Some are from well-known trusted institutions that we looked at, and some others are from different, like the fire service or things like that. And we looked at a bit of background on all of them and the topic of trust in general. So trust with central government, trust with local government, trust with information bodies like the NHS, etc. And we are getting a couple of those to come in so that we can further the topic. And
particularly vehement residents, I can send them to be part of building the trust between residents and the local government, yeah?
No, sorry, subject experts.